It is day number 78 of the self-quarantine today here in Los Angeles, and I think I'm going to start out by talking about something that is not only happening here in Los Angeles, but it's all over the United States. Protest, demonstrations, all over because of the anger, because of the reaction of a death of a black man in Minneapolis by the hands of a police officer. George Floyd, that was videotaped when he was getting arrested, and that officer that was putting his knee on his neck for over 9 minutes until he actually was unresponsive, unconscious, and probably died because of that. And a lot has happened since that incident. Number one thing, it took about 3 days for the officer who was responsible for this man's death to be arrested. And ever since then, there have been a lot of protests happening in Minneapolis. And not only there, but also all over the United States. There has been protest demonstrations, some peaceful, some violent, or a combination of both. I left off yesterday in my last video that when I was looking at the news source, the protest was peaceful, and they were. They were peaceful during the day, but when evening came, all hell broke loose. That did not age well. There was vandalism, there was looting, there were people that were injured from both sides. There were cars that were set on fire, people, businesses, black and brown businesses that were looted, and over 500 people were arrested on that third day in a row of protest. And now today is Saturday, and another protest, the fourth one. It actually started to go in here in Los Angeles all the way in the Fairfax district, away from downtown, because for the past three protests, it's been around that area in downtown. And already it first was a little bit starting peacefully, but then it ended violently, more than usual yesterday, and today is no different, and it's been even more violent. Thousands of protesters demonstrating, making themselves heard with signs, with their voices, against hundreds of police officers. And again, just like what we were seeing, the scenes, I saw the scenes through my TV and the news stations. People that were vandalizing, looting, stealing, setting things on fire, civil unrest. I think I saw over 4 police cars that were set on fire. And by the time everything was getting to its climax, I even saw that the Grove, a very popular shopping mall here in Los Angeles, started to be looted as well. Designer bags, everything expensive things that were being robbed, artwork, anything they could find, and they were even setting kiosks on fire as well, and robbing local businesses around that area. And I even saw that even reporters, some of them were in a very dangerous situation, but they were reporting what was going on in there, in their point of view, and seeing what was going on the ground, because what you see from the helicopter is just one point of view, but in order to actually feel that you're there, you have to see it from their point of view. And all I can say is that right now, the United States, America, it's more divided than ever. There has been a lot of history of racism in this country. Even after the Civil Rights Act that was passed in the 60s, that hasn't ended racism, that hasn't ended sexism, that hasn't ended the killings of black people by police. They haven't been trust between law enforcement and the minority community. There hasn't been rights for undocumented workers. We are seeing more and more the injustices that are happening in the United States. And a lot of people are saying, that's not protest. It started as a protest, but then it went all the way to rioting. But this is what happens when people had enough of killings of innocent people. And now that with the technology of cell phones, you can see it and put it online on all different social medias and see what is the ramifications of this. This actually makes me remember the Rodney King riots, the LA riots in '92. I was only 2 years old when that happened, but my parents actually had recordings of what happened, and my older sister told me everything about what happened that infamous period of time in Los Angeles. It almost feels the same way. It was just a volcano ready to erupt, and this is what's happening here in Los Angeles, and it's happening all over the United States. It's gone from talking about COVID-19 to now talking about injustice, racism, inequality, and so forth. So right now, Los Angeles, by the order of the mayor, is going to be under curfew. No one is allowed to go outside at 8 p.m. The curfew will be less restrictive depending on the situation. But so far, no one is allowed in Los Angeles County to go out unless you're an essential worker after 8 o'clock. And the curfew will be lifted around 5:30 a.m. So it's looking more and more that not just Los Angeles, but all over the United States, a lot of other cities are taking the same type of steps. And it's kind of scary. But so far, I feel fine. I'm just hearing a lot of the fireworks. I think that is to show solidarity to the protesters, and I keep seeing a lot of choppers going into downtown, where most of the action is going on. But that's the reality that we're living here. And I was going to talk about, COVID-19 and what was, the situation here in Los Angeles. But all I'm going to give you is just an updated information. It's going to be appearing below on what those numbers are. But I don't think no one is thinking about COVID-19 now. Everyone is thinking about the protest. Everybody's thinking about what comes next. This is such an uncertain time. And what a year it's been so far. Just here in Los Angeles, we lost one of the greatest athletes to play basketball, Kobe Bryant. COVID-19 happened, and now riots are happening because of the racism that we're seeing all over, not just on that one individual or individuals' moments that we see on camera phones or on social media, but it's just accumulation of everything. And I think because everyone has been in such a dark place in this COVID-19 pandemic, people have lost their jobs. They can't afford to pay rent. They can't afford to buy food. They haven't gotten unemployment benefits. All that accumulation of anxiety, of stress, of anger is to the boiling point. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in LA and also everywhere around the United States. And for me personally, like what is my position in this matter? Well, I would say Black Lives Matter. As a person of a minority race, I've been subjected to unfair treatment by police. And I understand the frustrations, but do I understand what black people go through every single day? No. But do I understand what their feeling is, what the stories that they share? Of course. I'm in solidarity with them. And one of my favorite civil rights icons, Martin Luther King, he said,
"Say as I've always said, and I will always continue to say, that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to oppressed people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve, and that in a real sense it is impractical for the Negro to even think of mounting a violent revolution in the United States. So I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say to my brothers and sisters that this is not the way. Continue to affirm that there is another way. But at the same time, it is as necessary for me to be as vigorous in condemning the conditions which cause persons to feel that they must engage in riotous activities as it is for me to condemn riots. I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
And I'm going to pray for everyone, both protesters and police, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, even though in moments people don't think that way. And some people don't think of other people as human beings. But at the end of the day, we have to, do our best and kind of create a dialogue, because I think we lost that. I think we lost the ability to communicate with each other. Nowadays, it's only about who can yell the loudest. And whoever yells the loudest is the one that wins the conversation. But that's not a conversation. That's just noise going through the void. So I'm going to just, like I said before, pray for my brothers and sisters who are protesting. Pray for my brothers and sisters who are law enforcement, because it's hard. I'm between two forces. I have friends who are protesting, and I have friends who are law enforcement. It's a tough place to be. But I know that at the end, if we open our hearts, if we stop, if we think, if we extend that hand and start having a conversation, maybe good things could happen. Maybe some good thing could happen. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. So that is it for today's Daily Journal. Everyone, stay strong, stay safe.